including Mankind trying to dance like him, failing. He's going for Socko. Everyone cheers. Billy puts a stop to that. Everyone boos. Ref tells Billy to get out of the ring. Billy says he was going for Socko. Then Al and Mankind fought over who would get to use head, and then neither one did.
No. Who would get to use whose stupid gimmick?
I see. Yeah, all right. A four-way breaks out. Al has Rhodey pinned with the Northern Lights bomb, but there's no ref, so Al goes for head, but then Mankind wanted to use Socko, and then Rhodey pinned Al with the schoolboy.
Talk about a geek of the week. You fucking idiots arguing over who's going to use a stupid gimmick, and one guy gets rolled up and pinned by a guy they had beat. This show is so hard to watch.
Well, on that note, out came D'Lo and Mark Henry to brawl with the Outlaws. I have lost all track of who is feuding with who on the mid-card of this show. I could have sworn the Headbangers were top contenders.
The Headbangers?
Didn't, because they broke the radio over Overdog's Head like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Dude, there's been like 25 shows since then.
There's been 2 shows since then.
Yeah, there's been like Heat, Raw, I'm sure a pay-per-view.
It would be nice
there.
for some acknowledgement if they had a tag team match
Hell
at
no,
the
they don't
pay-per-view.
tell you jack shit on this show. You kidding me?
That's for Nitro.
I never know what's going on. Yeah, Nitro should start replaying Raw angles while they're at it. I will put over Al Snow for one thing.
Okay.
He hit a great snowplow.
Yeah.
Looked awesome. Which part of it was, you know, the Road Dogg going absolutely straight as a board, vertical down on his head. But it looked cool.
We had Shamrock versus Austin in an I Quit match.
What an utter load of bullshit. Mm-hmm. This is what I was talking about earlier. This didn't make a goddamn lick of sense, but the fans just went crazy for the finish, and it was so stupid. This is not, everybody, a submission match.
No.
It's an I Quit match. That means that somebody has to say the words, I quit.
Into a microphone.
Yeah. Was there a microphone around, by the way?
No,
I don't remember
no.
seeing it anywhere.
No.
By the way, at the very beginning, in Austin chants to sound like the Goldberg chants, or am I crazy?
I think you're nuts.
I might be nuts.
Maybe they piped in Goldberg chants.
Maybe. So, if you ignore how much no sense this made, as a brawl was pretty fun. Let's see. The Stooges tried to trip Austin, attacked the ref, took him out. Mankind runs out, puts Shamrock in the mandible claw. And Austin adds a chair shot to the head for good measure. And then Austin puts Shamrock basically in a crossface. And as the ref is checking Shamrock, Austin lifts Shamrock's arm up and down to simulate tapping. And the ref deems this a guy saying, I quit, and ends the match.
I was just like, that's what you came up with? That's what you came up with? It was so stupid. Now, granted, I mean, they weren't going to make anybody say I quit. And I know that Vince just wanted to sign an I quit match because he wants Austin to quit. But God, what a fucking stupid payoff this was. But the fans didn't care one bit. As they say, they raised Austin's hand. And man, they loved that.
So I started this last week, and I'm going to keep it up as long as I can remember. But the finishes on this show. DQ did interference by Englishman. Clean pin.
That's pretty good, actually. That's two
in
more
a
than I
row.
expected.
Double DQ. Intentional DQ. Another intentional DQ. Pinfall where two partners fight over who gets to use the goofy weapon. And I quit where nobody says I quit.
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty awful.
It's horrible. Should mention afterwards, Austin gave all 3 of the Stooges stunners, and somebody had tweeted, and they had claimed that Gerald Briscoe took a worse stunner than Vince McMahon. I said I'd have to see it to believe it. I can now tell you, having seen it, that man's wrong.
Yeah, I watched this days ago, and I made no note of...
No, it wasn't a bad... I mean, it was just like he took the stunner and kind of did a shoulder roll out of it. But this was not Vince, where Vince cannot get the timing on a goddamn stunner right. I have no idea how. Fucks it up every time. I've yet to see someone take it worse than Vince.
There was that time... I think it was right after Austin turned babyface again after the invasion. But he's giving stunners to like 20 guys, and he's so excited he's going too fast for them, and he starts using the Force. And he stuns him. He does a stunner to nobody, and a guy 3 feet behind him takes a bump. That's probably pretty bad.
That's some PWG stuff right
One of my
there.
favorite stunners of all time was in 2001. For those people who think I have a terrible memory, I could be wrong here, but it was the show. I'm pretty sure it was December of 2001.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep, it was the tournament to determine the undisputed champion.
Yes.
And it was Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle.
Correct.
And Steve Austin kicks him in the gut, and he gives him a stunner, and Kurt Angle stands straight up and down and falls like a tree to his back.
Yes.
It was so awesome. It was the best.
Well, that was Raw. I guess we'll do Nitro now.
That's a pretty good idea, Vince.
Monday Nitro number 163, also October 26th, 1998.
So here's what happened. Halloween Havoc was the night before, and they decided they were going to go long. There's too much action to fit into 3 hours. And so they planned on going 3 hours and 20 minutes, and
They didn't tell anybody.
I guess whoever was responsible for calling the cable companies didn't. And so about 25% of the cable companies around the U.S. just shut the goddamn show off. Some shut it off a little early, some shut it off a little late, some shut it off right at the top of the hour. But basically, about 25% of the people. So it wasn't like everybody, but a good 25% did not see the end of the Warrior match or the entire Goldberg versus DDP match.
Wow.
So, Vince wakes up, or whoever wakes up, Vince's comb-over lawyers, and they call the cable companies and they claim that WCW did this on purpose as a ratings ploy. That's why Tony came on TV here and he explained this was not a ratings ploy. Everything Tony said was true. We've been trying to figure out all day what to do as a make good. Now, granted, the cable companies, anybody who called the cable company to complain, and there were tons of people that called,
Oh, yeah.
the cable companies either said, we'll give you a full refund, or we'll give you the replay on Tuesday for free. And so actually, it wasn't. Some said a full refund, some said a partial refund, some said $10 or whatever. Virtually everybody just took their money. They didn't want to watch the replay for free. So Tony says, we've been trying to figure out what to do. There's all sorts of options. What we've decided was we could give the replay away for free, or we'll just give the match that everybody missed away for free here on the show at 9 p.m. One time only. It'll never happen again. We sincerely apologize to everybody, but we're going to show you the Goldberg DDP match. We won't even make you wait till the end of the show, they said. We'll do it right there at the top of the hour.
They said that proves it's not a ratings ploy.
Yeah. What they should have said to prove it's not a ratings ploy was that they lost like $1.5 million because of this fuck up.
Oh my gosh.
And when you consider that all of this bullshit with the Warrior that we had to put up with, and all of these 9 million video packages for Halloween Havoc was because they paid this fucker $1 million. So they're out that $1 million for a -5-star match, and another $1 million because they fucked up the timing of the show. So you could tell, I mean, they were upset about this whole thing. So anyway,
I actually thought the speech was going to be a lot wackier, and I put a lot of work into transcribing the entire thing, and frankly, it was not worth it. But I do want to note, at the very, very beginning, he described this as an instance occurred that was out of the control of World Championship Wrestling.
oh yeah,
Well, that's a lie.
that was a lie. I mean, it was out of their control that people shut it off after you didn't tell them. But give me a break.
You were the ones who decided to go 320.
I will say there was one thing, though, when they said, we're not going to show you the end of Hogan Warrior, which a lot of people also didn't get to see. He goes, the only way to see that is to buy the replay.
Well, they explained.
I was like, that's not fair.
I forget what word they used. Oh, disgusting. They said the finish of that match was too disgusting to show on network TV.
Oh, yeah. The
you
whole
know-
fucking match was too
Do
disgusting.
you remember the finish of that match?
Oh, they didn't. What they showed here, and I remember
There
who
was
won.
flash paper involved, which Hogan could not light at one point.
And he think he
The
threw up his
imaginary
hands,
flash paper, and
Yeah.
it blew up in his hands.
Where
and-
pretended his face was on fire.
Yeah, it was a
That's
terrible
horrible.
match.
It
We did
was.
not go back and watch it, everybody. We've reviewed it like 2 times in the archive, so go back there and listen to it. I'm pretty sure it's just as bad now.
They opened, by the way, with pics of another match from Halloween Havoc.
Oh, hold on. One other thing.
Hmm.
Before they moved on, at the end of this whole thing, okay, they just go into this whole spiel apologizing to the fans for everything that they got screwed up the night before. And they go to Larry, and he just absolutely at random brings up the KY2 bug that's
Yep.
coming.
He did say that.
And you just look at Tenay, and he just shovels up his brow and looks at Larry. Goes, KY?
Yes.
The fuck?
There's a problem with lubrication in the future.
I see. Now, before all of this, they did show pics of Sting and Bret Hart from Halloween Havoc. There was ref bumps and foreign objects, and Bret hitting Sting with a baseball bat, and Bret won with a sharpshooter.
Yes.
You may update your database.
One other thing before this first match. So when they
God.
replayed the Goldberg DDP match, it did in fact draw the highest rating in the history of cable television.
Huh.
They beat Raw.
Somebody
With that said, the opener on the show was Kenny Chaos versus Stevie Ray.
Uh-huh.
They're actively trying to lose.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
They are actively trying to lose this war.
If you had told me this entire show, this opener was put out there to prove that they are not in a ratings ploys.
Really, the first 4 matches of this show.
Well, it was Chaos and Stevie Ray. It went 90 seconds. It was almost as bad as the Tiger Ali match. Buff runs out, throws a slapjack to Stevie Ray, and Stevie slapjacks Chaos, hits the lifting pedigree for the win. It sucked.
Bagwell was a babyface last week, is a heel again. I don't think they told us why. Maybe in the Bible of information they gave out at the beginning, it was in there somewhere.
Well, he's mad at his mother.
They got, well, maybe it's in this some point. This thing that happened with Rick and Scott and Buff and the tag titles, a ridiculous convoluted pile of bullshit.
So what happened was, it was Rick and Buff against Steiner and I don't even remember who.
Let's go back. It was supposed to be Rick and Scott one-on-one.
Yes.
The Giant comes out and says, hey, we, the NWO Black and White, have the tag belts. Why don't we do me and Scott
Okay.
versus Rick and Buff?
All right.
Now,
Buff walked out on Rick,
Mhm.
and Rick got the win.
Rick still won.
So
Right.
Rick won the tag titles by himself,
Right?
but has no partner.
Right.
Because I guess Bagwell walked out.
Which, shouldn't Buff still be half of the tag team champions?
Well, you'd
Absolutely.
think. But I guess because he walked away from a title match, he disqualified himself. I don't fucking know.
Now, on top of all this, if the NWO gets to decide who's defending these titles and when do they defend the titles, why did they volunteer to put the titles on the line?
Fuck if I know, dude. And
the
they still
tag
did.
division in 1998 in WCW is the worst of all time.
They still did Rick and Scott after
Yes.
that match,
Yes.
which Rick also won.
So, Stevie Ray and Buff, well, Buff dropping legs on Chaos. Stevie drops the worst leg I've ever seen. Rick Steiner runs out and chases them away. Then Rick cuts a promo saying, look, I won the World Tag Titles. I need a partner to fight the NWO. Somebody took a chance on me and gave me an opportunity back in the day. Kenny Chaos, I want to give a chance to you. I want you to be my partner tonight.
Kenny Chaos.
Is Rage hurt? Is that
Yes.
the
Yes,
problem?
actually,
Okay.
Chaos explained.
Yeah.
Rage is on the shelf with a bad shoulder. Now, what Rick said tonight was, I need someone to help me fight the NWO tonight. So I thought at the time it would just be a one-time thing. But regardless, Chaos says he's idolized Rick for a decade. It would be an honor to defend the belts with him tonight.
Well, I mean, is it a one-time thing?
Well,
They're champions.
later, Chaos came out wearing the belt.
Yeah, for tonight.
Maybe.
But maybe Rick just chooses a new partner every
week.
week.
That would be an awesome gimmick,
Yeah.
Well,
actually.
let's just see where
Tune
this
in
goes.
to find out who was the tag team champion this week. Regardless, at the time, I was fine with this. The match sucked. The post-match thing was fine. Canyon versus Prince Iaukea.
Oh, God,
Moves,
dude.
moves.
It's not even the moves. This is Canyon won with Flatliner, okay? That's all you need to know.
Okay.
This is not necessarily a Canyon thing, but it's happening all the time in WCW. It happens a lot today. And that is people finding it more important to try to have a good match than have a match that makes sense in context. Why in the fuck was Canyon selling this much for Prince Iaukea? They're just doing a bunch of moves. Canyon's selling and taking all these giant bumps for fucking Prince Iaukea. And then he wins. It was preposterous. Thumbs down.
I did like, here was where they broke the news about the Hogan Warrior finish being too disgusting for network TV. And they kept repeating the claim. And the more they repeated it, the funnier it got.
Mhm.
The Four Horsemen came out for a promo. And they said Mongo was missing. He had been partying too hard in Vegas the night before. But Flair promised he would be there by the end of the show, which turned out to be a lie. They run their mouths a bit. Out comes Eric Bischoff. And he is playing Mr. Nice Guy. He admits he made a mistake. These fans wanted to see you wrestle Ric Flair more than I understood. To To prove that I am a bigger man, I'm big enough to admit I was wrong. There's no doubt fans want to see you. I am putting you in a match tonight. Flair begins to call out everyone in the NWO. Says he's going to be ready in 10 minutes. Bischoff refused to name the opponent, but says, he said you will wrestle tonight. Did not trust Bischoff, but he'd be out there later dressed to kill. Nitro party clips. These guys have their own Nitro girls, which puts them higher than most Nitro parties on the totem pole.
Or all.
Almost. Well, others have had Nitro girls before. Pics of Scott Hall versus Kevin Nash from Havoc, where the finish was Nash hitting 2 powerbombs and then walking out to lose by countout.
Yeah.
He didn't pin.
Welcome to this week's Geek of the Week back then in 1998. What a fucking geek
All
you look like
that
on this
build
show.
up to that match, and then Kevin Nash doesn't want to win.
And the payoff later on this show.
Alex Wright versus Barry Horowitz.
I thought it was Ty Dillinger.
I wrote the same thing. I spent this whole match trying to figure out, okay, Ty Dillinger is obviously Barry Horowitz. Who is the modern equivalent of Alex Wright? And honestly, I couldn't think of a good one.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. If any of you have a suggestion, I'm open to it. They did the funniest jump off the top rope and hit your face on the guy's boot spot of all time.
Oh, that was horrible.
Alex does that in like every match.
I think he just jumped extra high this time, so it looks sillier.
Remember Barry Horowitz in WWE, just a glorified job guy?
He wasn't even
He was
glorified.
awesome.
He was
Okay.
a job guy forever, and then finally he got like a big win.
He beat Chris
They-
Candido,
Yeah,
That's
they
right.
played it off like it was this giant thing,
and they just kept beating him again.
and then he literally was Ty Dillinger.
Yeah.
It's like they gave him a tiny bit of credibility, and they just went out there and jobbed a
He
guy.
got an entrance after that, and that was it.
He was really good.
Barry was awesome. So, he went up top after this boot to the face spot, but Alex kicked him down, hit a neck breaker for the win. They showed Hulk Hogan attacking Horace last week. Then it was time for pics of the Hogan Warrior match. Giant interfered. Horace interfered. I didn't show this part, but Hogan eventually won. Sick Boy and Wrath.
Oh God.
Do any of you have any idea what they were doing in the first 15 or 20 seconds?
Well, no, I don't.
I just kept rewinding, asking, what are you guys doing?
But what I got out of this match was Wrath has been coming out every week and squashing dudes, and then they bring him out here and they have a competitive match with Sick Boy. Sick Boy actually got offense on Wrath. And you want to know what happened when this occurred? The crowd died, and they stopped caring about Wrath. And finally, he had his meltdown. They cheered for that, and that was the end of the story. Why did they give Sick Boy anything in this fucking match? What the fuck's going on with this company?
There's a young man that was not well, was winning on Wrath for a minute.
That's true. Yeah, this sucked. This absolutely sucked. DDP versus Goldberg from Halloween Havoc. They're the...
I haven't watched this match since 1998.
Yeah.
By the way, I posted this on Twitter when when DDP was walking out. They had, the cemetery at the entrance of the ramp, and one of the big screen read Diamond Dallas Page, and I don't know why, but the tombstone right below where it said Diamond Dallas Page, the name on the tombstone was Wash. So it said Diamond Dallas Page, Wash.
Okay.
I think they were trying to send Diamond a message here.
Oh, I see.
Ah.
He's dirty.
He's an unclean man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked Michael Buffer being sure during intros to say it's not the main event, it's the final match. I'm sure there was somebody's contract that insisted that be done that way.
Yeah, I wonder who that might have been.
So Page and Goldberg wrestled. It was really good.
It was very good, but like at the time, I remember people were like thinking it was just like a classic match, and they were playing it up like a classic match.
I believe earlier in the show, Mike Tenay called it the greatest match he'd ever seen.
Well, it
That's-
wasn't.
No.
The first couple minutes, Goldberg was so out of control.
You know what's weird too is I watched it when it was over. I thought, that was like a really good championship match, but I mean, maybe it's just we see so many great matches today, and I don't know. Felt like a 3.25 star match watching it with modern eyes. Go back to the Observer. Dave gave it 3.25 stars.
No, there you go.
So apparently everybody else thought it was awesome.
It was good.
I mean, it
Yes.
was the best match of Goldberg's career up to that point.
Sure.
Probably ever.
It may have been his best match until he ran into Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania,
Yeah,
which was his new greatest match of all time.
that's true.
But yeah, it was good.
The best thing about this was, it went maybe 10 minutes, not far off that, and Goldberg beat his ass for the vast majority of it. Page cut him off a bit. Then Goldberg made his big comeback, but then he hit the spear, but he'd had a bad shoulder because he hit the post. So the drama now was only Goldberg could take Goldberg out because he hit Page too hard. So Page had a chance to recover off the spear.
It wasn't even so much his shoulder. He speared him so hard he drove his own head into the mat like a DDT.
Mm-hmm.
That happened too.
Thought he knocked himself out.
And I will add, by the way, Goldberg selling his arm after hitting the shoulder post and Page working it over. Awesome. His arm's just hanging limp as he's reversing Irish whips and stuff. So there's the spear spot. Then Goldberg goes to the jackhammer, but he can't get him up because of the bad arm. And so Page turns the jackhammer into the diamond cutter. Everyone in Las Vegas jumps up to their feet. Page is down for a second, but he's down for a couple seconds, and then he goes to make the cover, but still Goldberg kicks out at 2. Not 2.9, 2, because he's Goldberg. And the best thing about this was everyone knew that was Page's one shot. He hit his one shot. It didn't work. They knew he wasn't winning. They didn't waste anyone's time. Because Page picked Goldberg up for a suplex, Goldberg turned into a jackhammer and pinned him. Done. It was a very good match.
It was a very good match. It was a very good match.
Mm-hmm.
Played to everyone's strengths. Like Goldberg, there's some things that Goldberg is so green at, but there's other things he does really well. Like he was really good at selling.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Doesn't even make any sense because he never sold. But when he had to, he was pretty good at it. Or he really killed himself throughout this match, which is also a real possibility.
So they go back to Nitro, and Tony Schiavone said this. I wrote this down too, and this I will share. It always comes back to the common denominator, because that's the thing that's going to drive ratings, the thing that's going to bring the fans back to the arena. It's not the shock value of things you see on TV anymore. It's great competition.
Man.
This poor guy.
If only he was right.
If only he was right. If only he knew what was to come.
Yeah, it got worse.
I think he was starting to figure it out.
May have.
Calling this goddamn show every week.
That's actually possible.
Let me talk about this next segment.
Okay.
This shit show. Jesus Christ. Gene goes into Nash's locker room. He says, "Can I talk to you?" And Nash says, "Come on in." And Nash is slumped over a little bit and just kind of shuffling, meandering. Goes and sits down, and in the locker room is also Scott Hall. And Gene says, "What happened last night?" And Nash says, "I didn't pin Hall because it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about helping him out." And that's when Hall shows up. These two fuckers then just start mumbling at each other. Gene's right in the middle with one goddamn mic. And first, Nash starts mumbling. So Gene's like, well, I got what the fuck's he saying? So he puts a mic by Nash's mouth, but then Hall's talking. So then Hall's mumbling. And then Gene tries to get the mic over to that guy. No one can hear a goddamn thing that's going on.
Not to mention, Gene is very short, and these are two very tall men.
It was so horrible. And then they shake hands, and of course, Giant rushes in, and him and Hall beat up Nash and toss him through a wall. I was like, oh, so this is the only explanation, okay? They had one wall.
Yeah.
So they toss the guy through the wall, and they realize, dude, no one could hear what the fuck you were saying. Like, Gene, can you get the mic up to the guy's mouth? And Gene goes, well, I'll do it better next time. We can't do next time. We fucking broke the wall. Okay, put it on television. That's what aired on TV. This was hideous. This was as bad as that one interview where Diamond Dallas Page was in the room and the light was waving back and forth because they were talking about Hall, but they weren't allowed to talk about Hall, so they wouldn't allow him to put footage in. God, this place is just collapsing.
I'm
We had a guy call today and say, man, Raw last night, it's like watching WCW then. I'm like, no, it's not.
it's not.
Are you kidding me?
I'm skeptical on the construction of this wall. The studs are supposed to be 16 on center, and
They weren't 16 on center, I can tell you that much.
I know, because yeah, he's a big man, and there's no way. Yeah. Anyway, I'm guessing this was a prop. Call it a hunch.
Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
I just like the couch is against the wall, and there's the wall, and Nash goes through it. And as you know, Nash is a big guy. So Nash goes through the wall, and they poke a camera into this bin or whatever is in there.
Disappeared.
He's gone. He's like Harry Potter. He's vanished. Okay, we got that segment down. NWO Hollywood comes out for a promo. I'll cut to the chase. He bragged about beating Warrior. He inducted Horace into the gang, and that was that. Took him 15 minutes to do that, but that's
Gave
what
his
happened.
nephew 17 stitches.
Yes,
Or 11 stitches.
whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Saturn versus Eddie Guerrero.
I love when they call the black and white the colors.
That's what he said.
It's fucking black and white.
The absence of color.
I guess one of them is all colors.
I guess.
Saturn came out, and apparently Rob Halford had a yard sale of some kind.
Yeah.
A black bandana, black tights, and a black chainmail vest. Not a good look.
Hey, I'll put the guy over. He was not a great wrestler, but he had some great things that he did.
Yeah.
Like cool suplexes.
He had a bunch of cool suplexes.
You put him in there with Eddie Guerrero, they had a great match.
They had a 2017 Raw match, basically. Just all cool moves. Saturn did a bunch of cool suplexes. Eddie did a bunch of cool, like, head scissors and arm drags and kicks. And Saturn was about to win with a DVD when the LWO ran in for the DQ.
All of them, including some guy that nobody knew who he was.
Well, first
What the hell was that guy's name?
First, it was just two guys. I forget which two. It doesn't matter. But between those two and Eddie, they cut Saturn off briefly, but then he made a comeback. And Saturn's comeback after the match was better than anything that actually happened in the match. And then like 6 more guys all ran in and beat him down, including a new person. Legit, at first, I thought it was Raging Bull.
Yeah.
I did too,
exactly.
actually.
And then I realized he was way too short.
But it wasn't.
No.
Apparently, it was some childhood friend of Eddie's, but I can't remember. I cannot remember. I mean, it must not have been that big a deal because I don't remember a thing about him.
Well, they laid out Saturn. I believe this new guy hit a brain buster, and Eddie hit a frog splash for good measure. Me and Gene interviewed Judy Bagwell.
You know what? This was not that bad. I thought she did an all right job here. The fans hated it, but I mean, it wasn't that bad.
She talked about Marcus degrading the Bagwell name.
True.
Said she was a mother on a mission.
True.
She was tired of being nice. She loved Marcus with all her heart, but she'd had enough of Buff.
Okay, so it was corny. But
You don't say.
I've seen a lot worse, so I mean, we'll have plenty to rant about on this show.
That's all fair, but the fans did not like her. The fans have not liked her since her first appearance, and it was clearly time to just pull the plug on this, but that's not what they did because they're WCW.
No. There's lots to do with Judy still.
Giant and Stevie Ray versus Rick Steiner and Chaos.
Okay. So, there was so much awkwardness in this match.
Stevie worked twice on this show.
I thought
Did he?
Yes.
He did.
He worked the opener.
Yeah.
I was writing about the awkwardness, and I was getting ready to just go nuts on Chaos and Stevie because they're Chaos and Stevie. That it's actually Rick Steiner and the Giant that just can't get anything right. They are fucking up left and right. And then at the finish, I have never seen anything like this before. The finish was the biggest clusterfuck I have ever seen that didn't get fucked up. Am I wrong?
Oh.
It was incredible. Giant and Chaos, I swear to God, Stevie Ray and Rick Steiner are doing a crisscross spot. And in the middle of it, Giant and Chaos did a spot in the middle of the crisscross, didn't get hit, and everything went off without a hitch. I was like, the crisscross is going on, and I'm like, what the fuck are Giant and Chaos doing? They're walking right in the middle of it. And Giant knocks the guy out of the ring, and the crisscross occurs, and nobody gets hit, and nobody falls down, and they pulled it off. And I was like, that was impossible. I don't know how they did it.
There was a point here where it looked like Stevie Ray and Giant whipped one of the guys in the ropes, like they were going to do like a double clothesline, and then Giant just changed his mind and walked away. I think I mentioned this last week, but Giant's on his way out of the company, and he has senioritis, if you want to call it that.
He's so fat.
Yeah, he's let himself go.
He does not care.
He gives 0 fucks about anything. He comes out with Stevie, and the camera's in his face, and he turns to Stevie and says, "I'm gonna walk like Lex Luger." And he flares his lats, and he sticks his ass out, and he walks in as wooden a manner as possible, and Stevie Ray loses it. They're doing this match. I don't know who decided that Giant need to be running corner to corner, but I suspect it was not Giant. It looked horrible. He's so gone. Like, he is so checked out. He's punching in, he's punching out, and he can't wait for this all to be over. So, yeah, Giant left, and Rick pins Stevie with the Bulldog. Eric Bischoff joins the announcers. He's totally over the top, trying to show what a genuine good guy he is who regrets his actions.
You know, when he first came out, I just started fast forwarding because I was like, fuck, it's just Eric on commentary. Next thing I know, it's footage from Flair and Hogan in 1994.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's an odd clip to show? And I'm watching, and they play the fucking last, 10 minutes of the
Wait
match.
forever.
And I'm like, now I got to rewind and find out what the hell's going on. I go all the way back. Finally makes sense in storyline. But I was so completely lost for a while there. I was like, did I push a button and, end up on a different show? What the fuck's going on right here?
So, yes, Flair did not wrestle on the show. They showed footage of Hulk Hogan beating his ass for 10 minutes. Hogan wins the match, and then Bischoff gloats for a while. And actually, the announcers both before and after the clips were fantastic. Because Bischoff's being evil, Tony's being the voice of reason, and Heenan's just being the goof.
He's kissing up to Eric.
I didn't think Flair looked good at all, Mr. Bischoff.
I think it was, Eric goes, man, Flair didn't look good. And Heenan just goes, I thought so. And Eric goes to leave, and Tony is so appalled. He goes, you're spineless. You're absolutely
And
spineless.
Heenan says, you got to butter up to the boss.
Yeah, it was great.
Before they show the clip, Bischoff's explaining, we're going to show footage of Ric Flair, and Tony says, you said there'd be a match. Bischoff says, no, we can't have a match. Flair couldn't pass the physical. Heenan at the other end of the desk says, what's wrong with him? And Tony does the slow burn to look at Bobby. There's nothing wrong with him. It was so awesome. It was like Shivani and Heenan didn't always have great chemistry, but they did here. Juventud Guerrera and Kidman. Here is where it occurred to me just how long this show is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their fault. They actually had a good match for the time they had, but
Yeah, they had a good match. In fact, it was so good that when Kidman first came out, nobody cared because he's still not recovered from being killed by Scott Hall.
yes.
But they had a good enough match. It was so much better than last week's Kidman match. And by the end, the people were totally into it. And Kidman won, Shooting Star Press. Everybody got on their feet. Everybody cheered and clapped. I nearly cried. It was a glimpse of WCW superiority in the middle of this depressing, slow death. Sad.
I watched this match and shed a tear because 205. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anyway, yes, this was a very good match for the 3 or 4 minutes they had. Very good shit. Scott Steiner came out for a promo.